because he was dehydrated. Is he ready? And he got hooked up to that. We'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You have to say the pledge.
Roll call, Sandy.
Home pledge.
Present.
Councilmember Kim Green.
Here.
Councilmember Bob Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Ken Palfini.
Here.
Mayor Susan Tavalero.
Here. Thank you. So at this time is when, if you have any public comment that you would like to talk about of anything, come on in.
AG.
Of anything that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to come speak. Gary, you're back.
Flavor of the month is back.
Tell me something great.
Hi, so Gary Thompson, 5744 Dunsmuir Avenue, Dunsmuir. As you know, I'm working with Mark Juarez, and we've had the engineer come up to do the structural inspection, and we're still awaiting a report. But the final things, but we are moving forward with other pieces. We've employed a architect or a person that is going to create what's called as-builts, so that we can do the work on all of the buildings and create the structures that are needed to make things forward. We have applied now for some permits to get in and look at some further pieces of the building, so we can get detailed engineering plans to move forward with the balconies and the other pieces that are needed for the abatement. That being one of the primary pieces. And we've added a couple more people to the team that are now working with Mark and myself, and so we're making progress. And so just wanted to report that, and we're looking also in the business planning process of looking at building out the uses of the building. I actually would like to speak with you at some point in terms of things that, because we totally understand where you're coming from in terms of TOT, sales tax, things like that add to the city's coffers. So, we're in the process of still building that plan. We've been focused mostly on the structural pieces and the things that will take care of the abatement and the building issues. So.
Well, until that part's done, you can't get a business in there anyway, so keep working hard on that part. Are you keeping John informed? Because I've been asking, I didn't even know you were coming tonight. I was very excited to see that you were here to tell me something was happening. Would you keep John informed? Because I ask him weekly.
Okay, yeah, so we were in communication with him earlier today regarding the permits. We have some other permits that we'll be filing in the next week or so. So we've got a series of things that will be coming up, and we're happy to keep Mr. Pemberton informed and in the process. We actually would be doing the one piece we have, I see that it was just approved as I was pulling up here, that for the inspection that will be happening on Monday. And and from there, we'll be filing some other permits and moving forward.
Good. That's great news. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Action. I like action.
That's what I'm all about. So
okay. I'm taking your word for it. I told you I was going to take your word for it.
I wouldn't stand up here if I couldn't keep my word.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody needs to know, the restrooms are right here, and if you feel like you need to leave and you don't want to walk in front of everybody, you can go out those back doors and then just come around. We'll watch you come around, but just come back around that way. But you can use those back doors or either side doors. Hi, name and address.
Shane Phillips, 548 Florence, also 800 Chestina Drive.
Thank you.
Here basically asking the council to adopt by resolution a third retail cannabis permit. And to try to have it in the resolution for the next meeting, we'd like to propose a storefront downtown, and asking if the council can put it up for a resolution on the next meeting so we can talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Anybody else have anything to say? Not on the agenda. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, council member announcements. Ken, hello down there.
Oh, I get to go first.
Would you like to go first?
Sure. Really, through this little coronavirus thing, and very little has gone on other than Zoom. But I did go to a Community Resource Center meeting up in Wairika today. That's the Siskiyou Collaborative, which is 6 of us now. We've added Scott Valley to our little family of resource centers. I would just like to put the impetus again that I would reinforce census. If anybody has not done your census, get a hold of the resource center. I don't know if we have any of those. I'm trying to help you along here, Sue. I still think the contest is going for, right?
Yeah, there's a contest. You're stealing my thunder.
The more people we have on the census, the more money our community gets from the federal government. That is always a good thing. Thanks.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you. Bob.
Ms. Mayor, I had to make some notes, try to stay on task here. First of all, I'd like to mention that California PUC is offering 18% energy bill reduction to anybody that needs some help during this time. And the California Lifeline program also provides a discount on telephones. And we have that number. It's 415-703-1437. And if anybody has any questions, they can call City Hall, and I'm sure we can arrange to connect them. I'd like to mention it's quite a coincidence that just before the virus hit, we were talking about, in our community, we were talking about that we've learned to tolerate ethnic diversity. And we were in the process of trying to learn how to celebrate ethnic diversity. In Powell, we're in the middle of something here. And I want to mention that I attended marches in Mount Shasta and Wairika this past week, very peaceful without incidents. I'd like to commend Mount Shasta PD for the graceful effort to maintain the right to peaceful protest without visible police. And I'd also like to especially thank the Wairika PD for their presence, which kept mostly red-hatted hecklers almost civil. They did a good job. Without them, there would have been problems, but they did a great job. And also, I think our PD was there, and it was quite an effort. But I want to talk real briefly about growing up. I was on the other side of the law. I've told my story before. A liar, cheat, thief. That's anything I could get away with. That's what I did. But I want to say that the cops that popped when I was a kid, they were above reproach. They were honest. They never lied. I lied. I was always lying, but they didn't lie. That's who they were. And that was also a time when you could go in front of a judge and say, yeah, I did it. Yeah. And a judge would appreciate that. And he'd give you some penance of some sort to appropriate. But he'd be working with you because you could tell the truth. And the truth was very important. But now, our judicial system has changed and morphed into a situation where if you go to court, you better have a lawyer. And I don't know that the lawyers haven't pushed that along and made it so, but it is a fact now. You don't go in front of a judge and say, I did it. I have a Pollyanna vision regarding policing in Weed. And I see officers walking the streets. I see officers talking to kids, walking in neighborhoods, talking to people in the neighborhoods, keeping the peace. peace officers. And I'm not saying there's what RPD is anything wrong with RP. It's just what has evolved. Through evolution, the war on drugs, things changed. No knock warrants. The goal to get into somebody's car, once you get into the car, maybe you this and that, and maybe it leads to something else, it leads to something else. Things changed. But we don't live like that here in Weed. This evolution has come to us. We don't live like that. We don't need that. We need peace officers. But brutality without impunity will create more brutality. And that's not just that it's going to get worse on one side, it gets worse on both sides. So I want to say that I believe that we all must be accountable. I hereby asked Ms. Mayor to consider a community workshop for next month, if she so desires or processes it. I've talked to Chief Mayberry about it. I wasn't going to talk tonight, but after talking with family, I changed my mind. I'm sorry, Chief, but that's what I did. To move forward now, when we talk about policing, we've got to have a vision. What do you want? What do we want? We've got to create that. But I happened to watch a HBO video called Ernie and Joe, Crisis Cops. It's Ernie and Joe, Crisis Cops. I ask you now to write that down, to watch it, to see, and see that there are different ways to handle a crisis. And that's where I think policing is going to go in this country. I hope it's going to go. But Ernie and Joe, Crisis Cops, please write it down. Put it in your mind. Ernie and Joe, Crisis Cops. Take the time to know what we want. Now I got to talk a little bit about coronavirus. I've been told that I wear a mask while in a group that my mask is a political statement. My mask is a political statement. My wearing a mask is a scientific statement. What I'm saying is I'm being responsible not to pass this virus on to you. I'm being responsible. And maybe I've been called, somebody told me you're being a sheep. I said, what? Then I look at China. A lot of sheep over there. They took care of that virus because everybody put a mask on. New Zealand has zero coronavirus right now because they put on masks. They don't pass it on. My mask protects you from me. I feel it's my responsibility not to pass this on. And I got a quick story. I read it last week. A fellow in Iowa, he was one of the people that said, no, I get it, I get it. I get it, it's the way it is, and hopefully I make it, whatever. And he was telling the story, that's the way he felt. Well, he got sick. He made it. His wife didn't. And my point is that if I'm going to say I'm going to get it, no big deal. But how am I going to feel if I get it and I give it to somebody else? That's my point. I mean, we need to come to a consensus about this. Is this what is real? Because we have a definite gap here. But this virus is something that it's going to affect our community. It's going to come. It's going to come. When we open schools and we get back going, get things going, we've got to have the responsibility to keep it down, control it. Not just willy-nilly, if I get it, I get it. And, well, if I pass it on to you, tough. I don't think any of us feel that. I think there's we're living in a bubble right now. And we're not taking the responsibility for it. So, more than anything, I want to thank you for the time to allow me to speak to you about this. And I think that as of everything, all sides should be heard. And this is not even a side. To me, we're talking about science, or are we talking political? Because when you talk science, it's fairly objective. You talk political, we all know. We all got a political point of view, like we all have you-know-whats. So, thank you for your time. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bob. Mrs. Green?
I do. I actually have several things. So first off, day before yesterday, we got the news from the Siskiyou County Health Department that we are able to open our public swimming pool. So this Sunday from noon to 3, the lifeguards are going to volunteer their time so that the community has a free swimming day. Then starting Monday through next Friday, from 1 to 3 o'clock, it'll be $1 a day. And then starting on the 22nd and going through August, the pool will be open from 1 to 4. It's $2 a day. They have not set their schedule yet for night swimming, but they are going to be planning several special events throughout the summer. And they're all set up for social distancing, believe it or not, in the swimming pool. They're taking your temperature. They're asking you some questions when you come in. If you're going to be on the deck with your kids, they also will be taking the temperature and checking them in. And we have UV boxes to sterilize our money. It's all set up. So I think our kids are going to be in good hands. They were up there training yesterday, the lifeguards, and I watched them for a while, and it was pretty cute. They are also going to be having a swim team. So if you know any kids that are interested, they need to go up and talk to Rich at the pool. There are 4 public swimming pools in Siskiyou County. And right now, it looks like Weed and Montague are the only ones that will be open this summer. Then I came in, I think this is kind of timely that I got these today, since we've got our 0.25% sales tax discussion on the agenda. So if you guys remember, back in 2015 was the first time we passed that 0.25% sales tax, and that is for senior programs, municipal services, and to fund the library. I have 3 thank you cards here from members I don't even know who one of them's from. The other 2 are members of the community thanking the recreation department and the city, and especially the drivers, for the services that they've been providing, not just to the doctor and shopping, but the drivers are actually going shopping for people now, and then just bringing the food to their house so that they don't have to go out. And one of the ladies that wrote a thank you letter has never even used our services, but felt she needed to tell us she appreciates that it's there if she needs us. So I did pass this along to the drivers, and I think, just this right here shows that we are doing something good with that money, and that it is very appreciated in our community. I think that's it.
That's good stuff. I think that van was one of the smartest things that we've done, because I've been to different meetings when they've talked about what are we going to do for the seniors, and I go, oh, we have a van. Mr. Green.
Yes, ma'am. I have just a couple things. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
It's good. I can't not say something along with what Bob said, because I appreciate Bob so much. It's been a little difficult watching all the things over the news and the news reports, and I stopped watching. And as an African American, I need to say something because I'm elected. So I wanted just to say that. Only thing that I talked with Chief Mayberry about it, and I talked with Chief Nichols before when something, I said, do we have a problem here? He goes, no. And I haven't seen a problem. I have been treated fairly myself. And the people that have been treated, that they say not fairly, they have something going on. And that's what I see. People that are complaining, they have something else going on with it. But I'm just about justice, and the people should be treated fairly regardless. But it is a systemic issue. My sister told me when I was on the video from the quarters that one, and I talked about I didn't grow up with any discrimination. She goes, you didn't see it. And she started explaining things to me that I just didn't see in the same house, in the same neighborhood that she saw. And I'm like, I was just so into it that I didn't see it. And I'm sorry to see what's happening. Of course, anyone dying is not even worth it. But I believe that our police force is fair, and I know they will continue. I believe that because of the leadership. It's just sad to see that it is a systemic problem and something has to be done. I don't believe in the destruction. I believe in protests, talking and giving your word. Everyone has that right. When it turns to violence and destruction, you've missed the point. And that's not what our leaders have taught us. And as a Christian, I don't believe that's the right thing to do. So I just thank you, Bob, for bringing that. And I can tell you, he was instrumental in me starting council some 9 years ago. I'll tell you that situation sometime, but he did that. The only other thing is that with the Lincoln Heights Cemetery, there was just a shortage of flags. We addressed that. We worked with people in the community on the staff here, and the shack has been increased in size by double. It's already completed already in just that quickness, and John helped us out with some structuring and some ideas, and some other people in the community, so I'll bring them forward. But go take a look at it. It's surprising that they said, we're going to do it, we're going to get it taken care of, and it's done. They just have to do the roof now, but it's all sealed and signed and delivered. So it shows that we all can work together, and I know we can. And yes, we're rural, as Bob was saying. We're taking away from some of the city stuff, but I hope we never have any problems that we're seeing across the country, because it's not necessary. It's necessary because things have to be changed, and justice is the ultimate piece, I believe. Well, I just hope we get to that without any more deaths. It's like every day you see something, and people are sending me stuff every day of these incidents. Every day in these cities, people are being handled so roughly, and it's, I don't know, it's just sad to see, but I'm glad that we can be fair and be humble here and treat everyone with respect. I believe we am. Or just be like my sister, I'm not seeing it.
Is that it?
That's all? Yes, it is, ma'am.
Thank you. On that note, last night I happened to be watching the parade for the 8th grade graduation and looked at the sign. If anybody hasn't seen the sign at the bottom of the hill, look at the names on that sign. And if you don't think we have a melting pot of kids, and I've always said that about my own kids, I was very happy they went to Weed High School because they are absolutely colorblind. Those kids were their friends. Those kids were their friends from the time they were in the kindergarten, and they're still their friends. And since Officer Green's back there, but I know he's not at the school anymore, everybody knows how much I appreciate the officer that we've had at the school, and the kids have a relationship with him, even though we might not get that next year.
The elementary school has already stated that their finances due to the lockdowns are probably going to eliminate that position at their school, and we have not heard a decision from the high school yet.
Thank you, which leads me into the next item that Ken almost stole my thunder. Yesterday I was on a webinar. I'm not real sure what it was, but the Secretary of State Padilla was on there, and it was about the census. And the census counts for federal funding. It counts for our transportation money, it counts for our representatives, and it counts for our education money. So right now, I get weekly, because there's a contest that I could win $49. I've mentioned that before. Now I'm getting serious about the $49. With all the cities, no, because we can't have $50. We can only have $49. And I'll probably put it into the pool box, but right now, weed is at 50%. In the middle of April, we were at 36%, so that's good, so we're moving up. Mount Shasta has 63%, Wairika has 64%. So if you've already filled out your census, thank you. I know for a fact that it takes, if you do it on your phone in a timely manner, it takes about 20 minutes. And if you haven't filled it out, please fill it out and get your neighbors and friends, especially if anybody starts complaining about things like the school's not going to have money, or there's a big hole in the middle of my road when I drive home, that a pothole in the road, there's where our money can come from. So there's a lot of different things that we need to do this. And they ask a lot of questions, but it's okay. I don't know why they ask them, but they do. But just make sure your friends and neighbors have filled that out, because right now in our region, which is 17 counties, Sacramento North, we are at 66%. The state is only at 62%. So we still have a lot of work to do of people filling out the census. So make sure that we get that done so I can get my $49. And we can get more than that for potholes in the road, and to get the police officers back at the school and whatever else they're going to spend that money on. And then I did this week attend on a Zoom transportation meeting, but that was more of just with the airports. And good news for Dunsmuir, they got a $3 million grant with no matching funds for to fix their airport. I know. Yeah, anybody that was in the room that knew what that meant all went, because that's great news. It's a lot of money. Somebody knew somebody, so that was a good thing. Okay, that's all I have.
I do want to.
Oh, Kim.
So I wanted to tag on to Bob with Netflix. If you have not seen it yet, watch 13th. It is a documentary. I watched it twice this weekend. And I don't know, you just got to watch it. It's very, very well done.
What's the subject?
The 13th Amendment.
Oh.
Yeah, 13th.
13th Amendment, okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 5, a presentation. These volunteers could not be here tonight. 2 of them are out of town, and 2 of them are still staying homebound. So we'll do this in another month. But if anybody has driven by the Wainema Cemetery over here, there are wood grave markers. The wood is from the water tower that was up on Woodridge that burned, and the city reclaimed the wood, and they've given it to them. And they have found graves over there that were not marked. So they've been making markers and putting those grave markers in, and there's been 4 of them that have been working on this, which I don't know how they do it, and it's a task that needs to be celebrated. But if you drive by, they're all kind of in a row, and I don't know whether or not they're done. Hopefully we can get them here next month and have them tell us a little bit about what they're doing, and we'll show them appreciation.
5 that they found.
Oh, 95?
95.
That's a lot.
Quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. And I'm sure it was a lot of work. Okay, so moving on to the regular. Oh, yes. One more thing. Thank you, Sandy. Our former mayor, Dave Pierce, passed away this last week. So we have a proclamation to honor and thank Councilmember Dave Pierce for his service to the city of Weed. Whereas in November 2006, the residents of Weed elected Dave Pierce to the Weed City Council. And whereas Dave was re-elected in 2010, serving a total of 8 continuous years as a Weed City Council member. And whereas on December 2009 to December 2012, Dave was appointed to serve as mayor by his fellow council members. And whereas Dave was always found helping and supporting his fellow citizens during the Bowles fire. And whereas Dave served the city in a fair, honest, and open manner, always voting his conscience as to what he believed to be the best for the citizens of Weed. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Weed, and on behalf of all of our citizens, does hereby express its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Dave Pierce for his distinguished service to the community, and highly commend him for the manner in which he has carried out his duties and responsibilities, dated June 11th, 2020. Did you? Bob or Ken, did you want to say?
Dave was one of the people that encouraged me to get on the council. Dave's favorite saying is, "I like you, Bob, because you fight for the people." But really, that was Dave. He fought for the people. He picked up the things that he thought were important, and he carried it on like it was the number one priority in the world. But I think it's important to know that Dave's been in was in a lot of pain the last few years. So I'm actually quite happy, relieved for him. I feel for his family. But David was true blue, blood green. He was someone who he had a way about him that was just as natural as could be. And there was no pretense about Dave. And he'll be missed. And his time on this council, he got a lot done. And I'd like to say that with our water issue, we found a lot of information over the years. But Dave is the one that did the work. Dave, this is no kidding. Dave, I still have the suitcase this high full of paperwork that he went and copied, looking for something, looking for some tangible proof that yes, we did own that water, not Roseburg. But Dave spent the time. He did the research. It was just a massive amount of work to go through, and it was one of those things that you went through it one time and then a question would come up, oh, I did see something somewhere, and we go through it again and again and again. But Dave was relentless and just did a tremendous amount of work for the city, so he'll be missed. I miss him already.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we will move on to our regular agenda. Planning Department. Council will consider resolution number 16-2020, authorizing application for and receipt of local government planning support grant program funds, LEAP grant. Keith? Tim?
Keith. Thank you. This is kind of a follow-up to the SB2 grant funding that you've authorized to get, and we were awarded. Last fall, you passed a resolution, and this March, we got the award notification. Well, HCD is kind of following up with another grant it's called Local Early Action Planning, LEAP, and it's basically along the same lines, a over-the-counter grant, no matching funds. Early Action LEAP program grants is part of a broader program formerly known as Local Government Planning Support Grants, which was established. Anyway, the overarching goals of the program are to accelerate housing production and to facilitate compliance to implement the 6th cycle of the housing elements. And we got funding the last round to do the 6th cycle. We're probably going to put out an RFP to do that here in August. The city is eligible for $65,000 of this fund. And again, there's no matching requirements. Now, with this grant, the City of Weed is proposing to update the Weed subdivision ordinance to be responsive in today's design features, such as narrowing the allowed right-of-way widths, reduce lot frontages, and reduce minimum parcel area. The update will also add consistency to the general plan proposed densities for single-family residential and the densities provided in the current densities provided in the zoning code. The updates will also add areas that aren't in there now, add process of certificate of compliance, how to do condominium development and conversions, and align the design of the streets to reflect changes made to the construction standards that we do have adopted over the years, but like I said, it's kind of old, so it's like we have a certain street width, whereas the construction standards allow for a whole bunch of other stuff. So we've pretty much got our subdivision ordinance is pretty much inconsistent with what we allow in zoning and what we propose in general plan densities. It's over 50 years old. It certainly needs updated. It would help provide opportunity to develop areas not currently subdivided at increased density or infill at compatible historic densities of areas in town recently upzoned or increases in density are allowed. And that's the work we're doing with the SB2 grant, is we're finding areas that need infill development and adjusting the rules to remove the barriers to get that done, to provide the goal, to achieve the goals that HCD has put out, is to accelerate and open the doors for housing. So basically, prior to 1963, when the ordinance was adopted, the city of Weed had developed housing in a compact form with small lots, with alleyways and rears, sidewalks, and relatively narrow public right-of-ways. There are many older neighborhoods throughout the city that still exist in this form. There are areas within or adjacent to those compact neighborhoods that could be subdivided using Norris historic standards. Costs are lower. As a result, costs are lower due to reduced infrastructure cost and lower land cost. Just as a side note, that's the typical common reasons why sprawl isn't that good. You know, sprawl is kind of like that term that has been invented a couple decades, 3 decades ago. So right now we have 60-foot lot widths, 60-foot wide ROW or right-of-ways, and basically all that really does is add cost all up the line, because it costs money to put in the pavements, costs money to put in infrastructure such as sewer and water. So getting back towards what we already have isn't such a bad idea. This has always been my thing. When you walk in those older neighborhoods, there's really nothing wrong with a 45-foot lot or a 5,000 square foot lot. I would have to say that there's a lot of that in the city of Weed. And it doesn't mean that everybody's got to develop to that. But what we want to do is update the subdivision ordinance so it'll be contemporary with what our general plan says, what our zoning code says, and what kind of contemporary planning is doing as far as new urbanism style neighborhoods and walkable streets. So adjusting these standards with 60-foot ROW would also lower cost of development and help encourage new homes affordable to the community. By going for this money and hopefully getting it, providing the opportunity to develop property at higher density as related to small lot, single family, or mixed densities and infill areas, housing can be developed at the increased densities desired under the infill and smaller lot zoning created by the SB2 funds. So all staff is asking to do is to allow us to go forward with this resolution and submit the application, which is due July 1st. Now, I am going to ad-lib a little bit to the application, because after I've spoke to my colleagues, Mark and Rico, Mark Teague is the liaison between HCD and the city. It's probably a good idea to also add to the application that we're going to clean up the rest of the zoning code to find those barriers that are inconsistent with the just in general of the general plan. So basically do one more little cleanup of the zoning code on top of what we change in SB2 and make it all consistent and update our 50-year-old subdivision ordinance. That's it.
Any questions?
I have a quick question, if I could, Mayor. Keith, I think the plan's good, except I just want a clarification on, we currently have a small little development going on where the old Great Northern building was and the rec hall. If something has already been approved and a development agreement is already in place, will it allow them to adapt that or change it?
No, because are you talking about the parcel map that we approved last 2 years ago?
About 2 years,
yeah. That map has been recorded yet, so we're right in the middle of kind of an issue with that. And that's another reason why we need to do this, because to grant them extensions, I had to look up all this stuff from the MAP Act that's not in our ordinance, or it's wrong in our ordinance. But no, they'd have to reapply for a map with a new subdivision map. But I do think that we that one started out to be a 7-unit subdivision. Yeah, and I believe that it was the applicant's choice to,
Roadways.
it's a 4, I
Four.
believe, right. Well, don't get so excited about that because, we had to, we're going to have a hearing at the Planning Commission about extending that subdivision for another 2 years. They expire after 2 years. And so we're right up against that right now. And I wouldn't hold your breath on whether that's going to get built or not.
They have already started.
Yeah. But they haven't recorded the map yet, which is kind of a bummer. Kind of a little bit of a technical issue.
Anybody else? Any questions?
I have one. Keith, excuse me, did you say that there has been areas within the city identified that would meet this?
Well, no, what I'm saying is we have a lot of areas of the city that have really small lots that were already created back in the day before we passed our ordinance. See, the ordinance came in 1963 and made it all bigger. And, I call it a recipe for sprawl. That's kind of like what they are, the old school subdivisions, because it's like everybody's got to have big lots, everybody's got to have wide streets. Well, that just wasn't the case when we got here, when weed was developed. So we have a lot of areas, like Angel Valley had a lot of 40-foot lot widths, and by 110 or so, or 125. I'm not saying everybody's going to want to develop to that density, but if you go into the areas, especially, let's see, there's another small lot area. Right up here, we just rezoned it, Florence Avenue, that area. Those are small lots, and everybody's kind of, the setbacks are a little less. And done right, you can have a very nice neighborhood that way. We're just trying to make it, remove the barriers and reduce costs to developers, especially if we're going to do infill. Like, this is probably more closely to your question. Infill development is when it's like surrounded by that kind, and then there's a big vacant lot or, really adjacent to that is zoned the same. But we would like to be able to allow development that's a little less cost.
Start, right.
Yes. In general, the ordinance needs it anyway. Just as an aside, by trying to determine how we get this subdivision that we're talking about extended, we had to look up our code and say, ooh, that says a year only for the expiration, which is not even consistent with the MAP Act. It's a 2-year expiration time. Okay, who grants these? Someone says administrative. Someone says it's a public hearing. Ours just says the Planning Commission hears extensions. And then they say you can only give a 1-year extension when you can give up to 2. We have a lot of these little things in there that definitely need updating. And having a good subdivision ordinance to go with your recently updated general plan and zoning code is probably the best way to facilitate development. Sure.
Okay, no more questions? Does somebody like to make a motion for the resolution?
I move that we approve resolution.
Oh,
There's no number on it, right?
yeah. 16, 20, 12, 20.
Here we go. I move that we approve resolution number 16-2020 and read it by title only.
A second?
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 16-2020. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Excuse me, by title only. And then we got to,
By title only.
by title only, and then we got to do it again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move that we accept resolution number 16-2020, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Weed authorizing application for and receipt of local government planning support grant program funds.
It's been moved and seconded to approve.
Hasn't been seconded.
Oh, has it been seconded?
So second.
Pick whichever one you want. It's been moved and seconded for Resolution 16-2020. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
We're out of practice being
Yeah,
social.
we are. Okay, moving on to item B. Chief.
Mr. Mayor, Council, brought forth the FEMA, which is a Federal Emergency Management Administrative Grant. This is Fire Prevention and Safety Grant. Actually, Assistant Chief Carter wrote this grant with his knowledge of the Forest Service. It's a 2-year grant process, and we're just asking permission to write the grant right now. And basically what it does is gives us fuel breaks in South Weed, which is desperately needed, and all the infrastructure of the city. So around the water tanks, we did it a couple years ago, but they obviously need to be updated. We need to keep those fuel breaks. Pump houses, and this gives us crews from the Deadwood crew. It pays for that, pays for chippers, and time for Brian and I to be there. It'll pay the city back if we have to be out there that day to manage it instead of us being at the city, which we're still doing our job, but the grant will pay for us and it'll pay the city back for our time. What?
It'll pay back the $7,000 that we have to match?
No. So the grant is $148,000 and it's a 2-year grant. The city match would be $7,000 for the 2 years. However, we are trying to write in there a hardship waiver, which we always try to write. Sometimes it's allowed, sometimes it's not. What will happen, we won't know if we get this grant for a year. It takes that long to go through them. And then they'll come back and say, yes, it's granted with the hardship, or no, we'll give you the grant if you come up with a city match. At that time, I'll bring it to you and let you know. Or we might get denied altogether. So we're just writing the grant right now. So.
To allow them to, oh, he's going
Go, you can make a motion.
to apply for the grant.
Question.
Yeah, just I know you mentioned at the meeting, but if you don't get it, what was Plan B? I think it's good for people to know that you already have a plan if that doesn't come through.
Well, Plan B is quite challenging because right now our academy just graduated, so all of our sleeper volunteers have just been picked up with CAL FIRE. So that we have 2 guys left at the station. One of them just got hired at Lake Shastina, so it leaves us 1. So, and he's one volunteer. The rest of our volunteers they work for CAL FIRE, so they might be gone. So it'd be Brian and I and 1 person. So it's going to be a very slow process if we don't get this grant.
Get the grant.
Yeah.
So this grant will allow you to get people to perform this work?
Correct. Yep.
This grant will also be for 2 years. I mean, it will cover us. We'll be able to do it this year and or the first year and the second year.
It's $148,000 total, which is actually a 2-year grant. So the city only has to pay, if we have to do the match, it's only $7,000 for 2 years, not $7,000 every year. Or we could get a hardship waiver.
Thank you.
Yeah, should.
All right.
So we're just approving the application?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
And it's going to take a year to even find out.
Correct.
Right. Okay, Kim has made a motion. Bob seconded to approve the writing of the grant. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There you go. Thank you. C, Administration. Council will consider resolution number 14-2020, adopting and setting a gross receipt tax and cultivation tax per square foot of canopy. That's you.
Yes, Madam Mayor, before you tonight is a resolution to adopt to pass a cannabis gross receipts tax and a cultivation tax based on square footage. This was tabled from last month's meeting. After a long, healthy discussion, it was decided to put out some additional information. As you know, back in 2018, voters approved Measure K, which was approved by 71%, imposing a gross receipt tax up to 10% on the sale of the cannabis, and then there's different levels on the cultivation tax, depending on if it's outdoor, mixed light, or 100% indoor cultivation. So I have provided the council some data from other cities throughout the state, and like I said, there was a lot of discussion. I will tell you, I've had a discussion yesterday with a gentleman, Mr. David McPherson, who works for a company called HDL, who's given us a proposal on managing our sales tax analysis, as well as TOT collection and business license. They do quite a bit of this. And he put me in contact with Mr. McPherson, who is the former deputy finance director for the city of San Jose, who went to go work for HDL and is now, I guess you could say, their cannabis expert, because he does this all over the state. And they have over 450 cities that they provide services for. And after a lengthy discussion with him, he pulled some analysis. They have great data that they can get directly from the state, and kind of gave me some suggestions, and we can talk about that if you'd like at this point, as to what he thought that this market share would be. Looking at what we have in Siskiyou County currently, we have Mount Shasta, I believe, has a 3%, and I believe Ashland, which is the next one to the north, they also have a 3% city sales tax there as well. Mr. McPherson, after a lengthy discussion, also, he looked at the data as far as the cultivation and canopy tax. His recommendation, and like I said, it's just his thoughts to keep this as a what he would consider a healthy a rate, to not put too much on the growers and actually hurt their side of the business as well, and keep them from going under, I guess you could say. His suggestion was between $1 to $3 per square foot. I know we have, and he has said that there are several cities that have come down on their tax rate after their initial, after the proposition was passed back in 2016. A lot of cities put up a pretty high sales tax and put a pretty high cultivation tax out there as well. And he said a lot of them have pulled back because they've found that, by pushing it too high, you're pushing some of the purchases into the black market. And
The state already did that.
yeah, state gets plenty. State gets plenty of money off cannabis. They just leave the scraps for us. And so here we are. And I just wanted to throw that out there as part of the discussion. So.
Looked at all the data that Tim had provided as far as every city, county, or whatever that's providing. I kind of lean towards the 3% is an actual number that is close, keeps us in a competitive range, because although you're not supposed to go to Oregon and purchase cannabis, that doesn't mean it doesn't go on. You're also supposed to pay sales tax when you go to Oregon on your products that you bring home for sales tax. But I know we all don't do that. So that being a kind of caveat on the side, they're at 3%. I looked at pricing at their products. They're all online. I think for our retailer to be...
Can you move your microphone closer? Okay, there.
Okay, now? Okay.
Is that better?
And yeah, well, I don't know about for me, it was fine to begin with. I can hear myself talk forever. So what I discovered was at 3%, the difference in Oregon is that their state taxes are less. So I think we do have to be careful of that. It seems like 3% seems to be an average around the local market. It seems to also have, I think Shasta Lake City was fairly close to that range too. I think they're a little higher though. But so anyway, and then I also noticed that a lot of the cultivation, that's on the retail side, but on the cultivation side, a lot of the counties and cities that had cannabis growing, cultivation, had a graduated 1, 2, and 3, 1 for outdoor for some reason, or may not have been the 1, 2, 3, could have been 2, 4, 6 for all that matters, but it was a 1 for outdoor cultivation, 2 for mixed, and 3 for indoor. And there was some sort of relationship that seemed to be used in a lot of these calculations throughout a lot of them. Some of them just threw up like wild numbers like $25 or something, which I don't know if it still exists, but it sounds ridiculous. But so that's my take on it.
To say?
My biggest fear in all of this is just timing. You know, right now, with every business is struggling. So I hate to put anything more on anyone until we're out of this unprecedented time. And so I realize we have to do this, but we could do it now and, you know, not enforce it yet, but I just have a really hard time right now with I know everybody's struggling. And I know the city is too. The city is too, yes.
Right. And first of all, I want to thank you, the mayor and Miss Green, for the time they put into this. And I have to admit that I have kind of sat back and most of it was over my head. So I'm trying to catch up. You did a lot of work, a lot of meetings. But I think, and Tim gave us some information, I think things that could be noted is that California adult sales in 2018 was $3.1 billion, 2018. Projected for 2022 is $7.6 billion. So more than doubling. It's growing. And in the beginning, we decided to support this as an economic opportunity. Matter of fact, I've mentioned it before. I respect the mayor because the mayor actually changed her mind regarding cannabis when it came to jobs. She couldn't say no to jobs. And I will always remember her having the courage to change her statement on it. But being able to attract private investment and providing additional living wage jobs, that was our motive for doing this. And I want to catch up here. The city allows licenses for cultivation, correct? We allow for processing. We have a license for processing.
I believe so.
And we have a license for manufacturing, testing, distribution, retail, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, and all cultivation is going to be indoors?
Mixed light cultivation, mixed light.
We don't have outdoor. Okay, so it's all indoors. The no greenhouse or outside prohibited. Okay, just catching up.
Hang on a second, Bob. Shane, is yours indoor? Yours is not mixed light?
Correct.
Okay.
Mixed light is an outdoor greenhouse.
A plastic roof? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So now, layman's question, can a certified California grower sell to Oregon retail? No. Nope. Everything is within the state. Okay. I'm one that believe if we're going to be in the cannabis business, I think we want to be the hub of Northern California. We're going to shoot for it. We have a city logo that's been established that we can use as revenue. for the city. That logo also is not just for cannabis, but we're hoping that we can do something with water. Yeah, if we can I think we need, if we haven't had time yet, but need to approach Crystal Geyser and see if our logo is attractive to them, and that's something that we need to look at. But the main thing is to understand that we do have something. This our name Weed. We told for years that people have said, "Hey, you got to cash in on it. It's there. It's there." Well, we haven't really seen it happen yet. And the Forista, Elizabeth has raised the bar for downtown businesses. It's been a very useful step for sure. And the tax we're creating tonight, or if cultivated properly, not only we create jobs, but in 5 years, we could be looking at actually working on a prudent reserve. But it's got to happen. It's not happened yet. We're not doing nothing's. Where it's been a long time. I believe we should move aggressively forward by treating this industry as an economic opportunity. I don't know anything else we could bring in right now that could have the possibility. Possibly hemp, but that's a whole different breed. But one of our goals is not to, it's got to be not to tax cannabis back into the underground. It's already been mentioned. The goal must be for them to succeed. We got to help these people succeed. They are a cash cow. We have an opportunity here. I think we should begin cultivation tax as low as we can, but I'm thinking it's something like $1 per square foot after the first year, and each year raise it $1 to make sure that they're going to make it. I don't know that. I know that there's some plans for. Ray's been working on it for quite a while now, trying to. Come up with a very large cultivation, which would change a lot of our economic woes in weed as far as jobs. But we need to pull that off. We've got to do something. If Ray can't do it, we'll find somebody else to do it. It's got to get done. I mean, it's an opportunity, and our backs are against the wall. If we're in the game, we're in the game. We're in the game to win. You don't get in the game just to, tread water. You're in the game to win. So I think we can start as low as we possibly can to make sure these people are successful. Pushing it back to the black market, and we already mentioned that the state is, the state was definitely unfair with what they did with this, because the local communities are ones that actually have to provide the security and provide the everything. It's right here in our community. So I'm in favor of us starting as low as possible and with a graduating cost per year.
Mr. Mayor, as I said last month, I still the same 1 to 3% on the gross receipts and $1 or $2 for the cannabis cultivation.
So,
We all
Tim,
have different things, so.
where'd these $10, $18, $26 come from that I'm looking at?
That was all done before, when the voters went out back in 2018, those caps were set.
Those are caps.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. I got it. Okay. At last month, when it was only Stacy and I there, I like to gradually move things up, like Bob said. I would not be opposed, we're talking retail right now, of starting at 1% July 1, and every July go up 0.5% until it reaches 3 and be done. I don't even care if we start with 0.5% and move up every year. I mean, I don't do numbers, but it would be easier to start at 1 and then move up and cap it at 3. Or when it gets to 3, we can look again. Maybe, there'll be, maybe 3's too much. We may find out 1.5 is all we can do for a couple of years. for our businesses. It depends. Like Kim says, right now is not a great time to start that. Maybe we could even say to start it January 1. I don't know. But to start it low at $1, at a 1%, and then just gradually at a 0.5% move it up. And do we have to say right now we would cap it at 3 or no?
By resolution, I believe you could. Bob.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that these were maximums. I'm good with that. What did you say the ones were? $1, $2, and $3?
Yeah, that's what I believe.
What you
Councilmember
found
Palfine-
someplace?
As an example, and
Yeah.
I kind of just doubled
Yeah, as an
down on it.
example.
Other cities, that's what other cities
Other
have?
cities, yeah, they kind of stair-stepped it. Or you could just put a flat,
Well, for one, we don't have outdoor, so that one doesn't matter. So even if we put $1 on mixed light and $1 on it indoor, and again, raise that by $1 till I'd love to see us get to $18, but
No, too.
we may, yeah.
Start someplace. Excuse me.
But start at $1.
Say that we have a fairly well-established business, and I understand we don't want to tax everybody. It is a pass-through tax. I'm not sure, it is also what I would consider a sin tax. In other words, things that you don't really need but you really want. So anyway, whether it be alcohol, cigarettes, or whatever.
Or a car.
But I think starting at 1 is a little bit too light. I think 2% is not an unreasonable rate for a business that has been in business. If somebody was brand new, then I would probably say I would agree with that a little bit. I would also say on the cultivation, I also noticed in a lot of the research that was done here that they did not have taxes on distribution. Is there a separate one for transportation? I think it's just distribution, a distributor, not on a retail basis, but a distributor on a wholesale business to business. Testing was not taxed, and there was one more.
Well, if you're going to be delivering, you're obviously selling it.
Retail delivery is retail, but
Right.
distribution is considered, if Shane had a product delivered to Chico, or to even actually if he was delivering product to Elizabeth, then,
But it's his product, right?
yeah,
So his would have come under the $1 a square foot.
he's already paying the tax
Yeah,
on
we already
cultivation.
taxed him on it. We don't want to tax him twice.
Right.
Well, we might, but
Was there one more that wasn't taxed, Tim? Do you remember in all that? I think there was 3 that weren't taxed.
Yeah.
because that's what the federal government would do.
Not by federal, but by most localities that,
I'm being mean. I need to stop. Huh? I brought my hammer.
everybody did, what are the 4 facets? Cultivation, nurseries, I think was the other one.
Yeah.
No, nurseries was taxed.
Yeah.
Why, is it nursery the same as the square footage?
Yeah, it would be the same as, no?
What is taxed, what we have is cultivation, manufacture, distribution, and non-storefront retail, excuse me. A nursery could go under your square footage depending on what you want to charge us on that. Right now in Reading, their tax rate is $3 a square foot. Hence, this is Reading, quite a bit bigger. Also for other commercial manufacturers, processors, laboratories, testers, distributors, it's 3%. Tax rate for retailers is 5%. So I think the 1-in-1 for what you guys are proposing and then gradually go up is right on the money. I don't think that that's off at all. I think you guys are, and I'd like to say thank you, Ken, for last meeting, tabling, and letting us do a little more research as a group and kind of getting there and giving us that opportunity. We really appreciate that. Yes, and then also with Bob and Ken, we still would love to have you guys out for the tour of the new micro business. We'd kind of like to show you what our plans are for trying to lead the way. I have stepped up for the last 2 years, started from 1,000 square feet. We're now at just under 3,000 square feet. 20 lights, getting ready to put another 20 in, and working really hard to get employees in. There's a lot that we can do for the community, as in job-wise, provide lots of jobs. We do just need, everybody on board and to keep working like we're working. So we just really appreciate what you guys are doing here, and I think you guys are right on the money. Thank you.
We need to make those distinctions as a whole, as what we're going to tax and what we're not going to tax.
I would be remiss if I didn't say this. As far as the step, go every 6 months or a year, that administratively can be a little bit difficult. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just rip the Band-Aid off kind of a person. So if we're going to step it up to 3. But that's up to the council as well. But I would just tell you, administratively, it could be a little bit cumbersome to.
Even if it was like July 1?
Well, that would help starting the new fiscal year.
Not the middle of the year?
Yeah, not in the middle of the year. January's generally not good.
Excuse me, Mayor, I don't really want to go too low. 2% is not a huge number. As we have seen, Oregon is higher, Mount Shasta is higher in Redding, the taxes. We're still below at 2%. I think we're not being overburdening to our retailers. The cultivators, remember, whatever they cultivate and raise is going to go also to the retailer and raise. So all of that kind of snowballs in a little bit. So again, I think 2 and 3 is also a reasonable number for what we have. I think we do a little higher on indoor cultivation because there is more density, and I think that must be the reason why everybody's talking about higher on cultivation for the indoor stuff. But anyway, just that's what I think. I'll let it go.
Shauna, please. And I'll remember. So go ahead. I have something in my head. I think I'll remember it. I wrote it down.
Okay. I'm Shauna Machado. I live in Weed. 467 Main Street here in Weed. I would urge the council to tax. Our city is not a cash cow. Our city workers, fire department, police department, city workers, all have to take furloughs. That is the fact of it. I understand we don't want to be taxed, but I do agree with Bob that we need to use our name. We need to bring money into this town, or we're not going to have a town. So, people don't have jobs. They're not going to stay. We're not going to have people in our schools. We're not going to be able to bring the police department back to the school. So I would urge to make a decision. I know nobody wants to be taxed. Like I said, we're taxed heavily on our cigarettes, our alcohol, our gas is outrageous. I'm not even going to get into, our registrations. I mean, so I hope, we get some money coming into the city. Thank you.
Right, Shauna. And I know I asked this last month. So if we do a flat tax on the grows, you only pay it once. You're not paying it per crop. You're paying it once. It's the square footage per year, right?
Per year, yes.
So if you can grow 4 crops a year,
yeah,
it's a flat fee. Basically, it ends up being a flat fee.
And I would
not Elizabeth's.
Yeah, I would.
Well, just raise your hand. Yeah, so that's, that one is just, that's a flat number. Whatever we decide it is times whatever square footage they have.
There are communities that have, I would say, made it a lot more cumbersome by trying to do it by the crop or by this, and this is just a flat, much easier to manage for staff. Every 3 hours.
So $2 a square foot every 3 months?
We're going goofy by the time I got through reading all that stuff.
Okay.
And then you have, I think it's like, is it Mount Shasta that has it to where it's like by the ounce?
Yeah, it's literally based on your output, which is you have to go through the state to register exactly how much you're putting out, and so it's a little more specific to each cycle because the different varieties yield. Like you have two plants of the same size, one variety will yield you 3,000, one will only yield 1, and there's a cost differential there. So.
Okay.
Elizabeth. No, wait a minute.
Well, give me a little extra time tonight. I'm asking you nicely.
Is all that, do you have all that, you gonna read those papers?
Thank you. I don't know, and I need my cheater readers, I'm getting old. Elizabeth Tabor, 242 and 218 Main Street. Tonight I'm gonna sound maybe completely selfish, so I've already forewarned the other license holders behind me, so every person that I've spoke to in the last couple of months, I've asked how much money has the city received off of cannabis to this date? And the repeated answer I get, I don't know, I'd have to ask Emily. Nobody knows. I know. I know now. I contacted the California Department of Tax and Fee, and in 2018, in the 10 months that we were open, with our license fees and our tax fees for that first 10 months, and remind you, 4 of those months we were only medical, so we were turning away recreational customers. And with the few donations that I made, I contributed in 10 months $26,000 to the city in just the first 10 months. In 2019, between all my taxes paid to the California Department of Tax and Fee, donations to most things that I was asked for, from car shows to Ron's concert in the park, graphic arts, the whole thing, I actually contributed tax-wise and with those extras, $30,000. And now we're in 2020, which has been a very interesting year. It's been a very hard year. We've had some employees that were over the age of 60 that didn't want to get exposed to COVID, so they chose not to come to work. So we were actually down 4 employees. So we've worked short-staffed. Knock on wood, we were considered essential, but therefore we had to put best safe practices in place to be able to be open. That's expensive when you have to keep doing all the stuff. So tax-based alone just for 2020, I have to go on the 23rd of this month to pay our tax. So the entire tax that my business alone has given to the city will be $67,935 since we've been here.
Total since you've been here. I was thinking that was 2020. Whoa.
No.
Okay.
But since we've been here.
The 3 years that you just described.
Basically 2 years and 5 months. We opened in February of 18. So to be open during COVID, and no other retail businesses have been allowed to be open, knock on wood, it's something. And granted, it's not the cash green cow that everyone had hoped for. It is happening. That's a 1.25% that you get every time I go pay cash. You also have another 0.25% coming up in November for the cemetery tax that's going to go on us. So if that passes, so now we're going to be at 1.5%. And in addition, what's a little bit troublesome is that we keep comparing ourselves to Mount Shasta. Then from Mount Shasta, we're comparing ourselves to Redding, and so forth. There's 45,000 people in Siskiyou County. There's 179,000 people in Shasta County, and that's not including when you start adding everyone else around it. They have a very large customer pool. When it comes to the retail stores, I solely depend on being able to get someone to come through my door. And now a little bit if someone chooses our delivery over another. When you're doing distribution, cultivation, manufacturing, and et cetera, they have the potential of more income and more revenue because they can pick up from Weed, California and go drive to LA where the indoor pounds are $3,200 a pound, wholesale. I don't know. I don't know that. Well, I don't buy from here. I can tell you from Mount Shasta store that from the Mount Shasta cultivators I do business with, that's about $2,200. So again, then that's excise tax, then that's your markup because you have to make a profit and so on and so forth. So just because a certain shoe might fit Shasta Lake City and Redding doesn't necessarily mean that's the shoe that's going to fit here. We are a different demographic. I am so tired of hearing someone come down, in Oregon, I can get this for $9. Or we're constantly compared to Oregon. It's really horrible. And they had a gross abundance overgrowth. Everything was cheapened down to get rid of it. So we have had hassles here. I'm not opposed to, and I just wanted you to understand that because I said it last time, a 1%, I get it, but realize that the retailers takes the biggest hit because I have to now explain why our prices have gone up. And I hear it every day. You can go on to Yelp, you can go on to Google reviews and hear about how they complain about our pricing up here, especially, California. But then you drive to LA and I guess it's okay to pay $90, but, $30 or $40 here is whatever. But they've got how many hundreds of thousands of people? So I hold one retail license here and I hold one retail license in Mount Shasta. That's all I'm taxed on. I don't want to deal with all the other components of that. But understand that when you're making these decisions now during COVID, I can only ask that maybe decide your rate and start it on January 1 on a whole new year and let us survive COVID, let us survive the lack of employees, and let us get through something that none of us in this room would have ever foreseen. I have distributors, other dispensaries that can't even come up here and deliver us product right now because they're afraid to leave where they're at because as these guys are causing these riots, they're kicking in dispensaries doors, distribution doors, cutting down plants and stealing and robbing. I can't make certain orders with certain distributors right now. They won't leave their area. So this really is more of a trying time than you might realize. That's basically all I'm asking. I want to be here, I want to stay here. I don't want to have to compete with big city. And if you could find a reasonable number and a date besides July 1st, Sue, no offense, start us on a new year and let's see if that helps or hinders us. And we can have an ad hoc meeting and say, okay, this first 5 or 6 months, starting January 1, this is working. This is working. We can do this. And maybe raise it once a year if you said the monthly thing was more difficult. And go from there. It's trial and error with everything, but let's make an educated decision. And I'm just asking that you can try to put it off for the first of the year and let us get through this toughest time. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a store in Mount Shasta. They're charging 3%. Is that correct?
Yep, and they should have reconsidered that. If anything, since we get no grant funding, we get no emergency anything for cannabis during this, it would have been very respectful for Mount Shasta to have postponed that until at least phase 3 COVID was released.
Start at 3%. Was that recently?
Last year. But again, I am fortunate in that because that's all I do is the retail. Those people that are doing edible manufacturing, nursery, cultivation, and all that, it's more expensive on them. So that's why, again, there's only one company out of Mount Shasta that I do business with because they want their product to be local, so they do make it cost affordable for us to have it on our shelves and be able to be proudly saying, this is locally grown. And on that note, Bob, and with what that nice lady behind me just said, you're talking about the city and name weed and using that name and getting some economy. Do you remember the city made me take the word weed off my front windows? And now you have a logo that you want to stick on cannabis products? You tell me how that's even fair. You tell me now, and it's in our ordinance saying that we can't use that, if you look back. But now you want to use it and try to build that as an economy, then I want to put the word weed back on my front window like I had. I mean, if we're going to use this and try to bring in some green, then we better reconsider it being able to say, hey, come buy weed and weed. And no one have a problem with that. We got to get them in the door. I have to get these people in the door, or we're not here. And I need your help doing that. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Do you need the chair?
I'm going to probably suit and use the chair. Yeah, absolutely. This is much nicer, actually. This is good. Hi, Raymond Streck, 3038 Nighthawk Lane. So first of all, I'd like to thank all the city staff for their time on this. Last month was a little helter-skelter with the Zoom thing going on, and I'm glad to see that by disseminating information about what's happening in other parts of the state, we've come back to a more realistic number set. I'd also like to thank especially Sandy and Craig and all the other staff time. We are back on at least some track for the development agreement project, which obviously got derailed in November with Ron's abrupt departure, but we are making some serious headway on that. So, and I think that's a great segue to, and again, this happened under Ron's watch, but it was a very calculated decision to try and use the city logo in conjunction with the part that we're not talking about, which is the appellation of origin designation, which is the actual consumer branding mechanism that will allow the city logo to be recognized as a high-end product and thus increase the value proposition of the city brand. That is a really in-depth process. It is one of the integral and central components of the developer obligations in the pending development agreement, but it is a mechanism, and I've provided city staff with a malleable spreadsheet that they can input different product number outputs versus cost, and you can show that the city has the ability to generate significantly more revenue on a 3, 5, 10, 25-year timeline through the use of the city logo in conjunction with the appellation of origin than it does on a cultivation square footage tax will cap out. As you noted, it is an annual flat fee, or through a gross receipts sales tax, which then has to go through the Board of Equalization, and the city receives proportionally less of that money than it would through the use of its own IP, the city logo itself. So I'd like to thank everybody for their time, for putting the work into this. I think the numbers we're talking about are very, very reasonable, and I think that, as you alluded to, we'll be revisiting this issue as businesses develop and as sales develop, and I think that in the years to come we will see, and the numbers will eke out, that the use of the logo through the appellation of origin designation is going to be the biggest breadwinner for the city versus this more traditional taxation models we're looking at right now. And I think that's really important to keep in the back of our minds when we say we're going to start it low, because in the years to come we can make up the difference and more so with the appellation of origin designation. So also to your point, Ken, the $1, $2, $3 for outdoor, mixed light, and indoor is actually a direct proportional cost to what it takes city staff to inspect, and specifically for fire safety as far as indoor goes. That proportion of cost is based upon county government's analysis of what the oversight for each of those different tiers of cultivation look like. So I figured that was worthwhile. If there's any other questions, y'all know where to find me. 3038 Nighthawk.
Anybody else? Okay, discussion.
I just heard that it doesn't seem to be an issue on cultivation, what we are proposing. I was actually talking about 1, 2, and 3. 2 for mixed, 3, and so I didn't hear a big issue with that. I hear an issue with the sales tax. I also heard that we want 1% potentially starting in January. I don't like to keep pushing this away from us a bit, but maybe 2% in January, where we don't mess with the status quo as it is right now, and start the retail one in January. Hopefully, COVID will be behind us a bit. It won't be gone, but it'll be behind us a bit. Anyway, feelings.
Well, what if we did 1% and $1 starting in January and review it again in June with a possible $2 and 2% to start in July? Is that a bookkeeping nightmare?
Here to tell us.
Yeah, so she'll show up to the next meeting if it is. I mean, is that reasonable? Because possibly in July, hopefully next July, we're out of this slump. And then it will be back on the not nightmare of a bookkeeping.
Call it October, we call it Croptober. All the black marketers, they're all harvesting their crop. Retail business slams, cultivating their own personal use. So we have COVID, and then October hits. Business does not pick back up until February, every year. It's been this way. I've been in this industry in retail since 2014, and it is a hamster wheel. It's the same thing.
Well, I bet you Macy's and Kohl's would probably tell you the same thing. There's nothing happening in January, so.
So that's why,
They probably don't have that crop problem in October, but.
Croptober kills us.
I like that, and I would be willing to make that motion.
Of a 1% and $1 start in January. Review in June to a possible 2%, $2.
January 2021, June 2021.
Yes.
I go along with that myself, and I, at the same time, as Shauna pointed out, I mean, things are different now. This is not a year ago. Things are different now. Businesses are all different. We've got to do something. We've got to start. And I want to, as far as Elizabeth goes, I was one that I agreed that we weren't going to use the word weed on any stores. I feel differently now because we're in a jam. My perception has changed. We're in a place where we, as far as to keep our services up, that we're required to, not only required to, we're on this council to keep going. We've got to get something started, and it's to cultivate it. The word cultivation comes up again, but to cultivate this and hand in hand as we go into this. I think that I think it's a good start, Ms. Mayor. I think that. And I think it's very important for us to make sure that we have, and here's the Pollyanna coming out in me again, but I think hand in hand. I mean, doing this together to make sure you succeed. We want you to succeed, like any business in wheat. We want the business to succeed. We're dependent.
Asking a question, are we allowed to open our other businesses now?
Which businesses?
The boutique next door.
Yeah, there's retail guidelines that are out, available from the state and from the county.
If you open a swimming pool, you should be able to open your store. But nothing really makes a lot of sense anyway.
I want to say one other thing too, and just as far looking forward, one of the problems right now is the risks is the federal laws we're not coinciding with ours yet. But I do have faith that this is temporary. Each year, more and more people are coming to realize that it's not the stage 2 boogeyman drug that they thought it was. But I think that looking forward to myself, I think it's an illusion to think that the COVID is going to be gone here in a short while. I think we're in this thing, and we're in this thing together. So trying to make sure that the black market doesn't come back and snuff out our businesses, because we get nothing from the black market except problems. I'm sure that but where we're at now, I really think it's important that we hold hands and we get through this thing. And 5 years down the road, if everybody's successful, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
Yes.
I'd like to amend the motion to leave the 1-in-1 alone, even though I am not in favor of 1-in-1. But I would like to make the amendment that we exclude distribution and we exclude testing, and we make sure that we include manufacturing in square footage, and we include nurseries in square footage, and we include cultivation in square footage. I'm not sure if that's, to me, it's not clear in here how we're going to. I didn't see that in the proposed ordinance or the resolution.
I'm wrong, those that are in the industry. So the reason why there is the nursery and cultivation were separate is because the state doesn't view the plant as a product until it's actually producing. So is a sales tax on, so if you sell a start to another person, there's a sales tax on that though. So we are collecting a tax, the state's collecting.
They were buying a gummy? Oh, okay.
Right, so that's why that's not included.
If we're going to do a 1% on retail, then we should do a 1% on nursery sales.
That's for you to decide. I'm just clarifying as to why they're separate.
Considered retail, so it will have that tax on it.
In Elizabeth's store, whatever she sells, it's not just marijuana that is taxed at a 1% that I'm seeing. It's whatever her gross sales are, because we're not going to sit around and do a division on what's pot and what's cannabis and what is retail. That's what I am reading in a lot of these ordinances. Correct me if I am wrong, and I want clarity when we write this. I do not want to have to come back and hit this son of a gun up 74 times. And we still might have to hit it 4 times, but that's 4. Okay. So, and I kind of want to be a stickler on that. So, nursery is already taken care of in our minds?
Nursery is part of retail.
Where she sells it, but nursery, if I have a greenhouse and I'm growing starters, how do we tax it? Sure.
All in one chair.
Now we'll have to.
Stick aside. I'm trying to get
Okay, so the big thing with a nursery, and the reason that a lot of jurisdictions don't have a cultivation square footage tax associated with nursery permits, is that a nursery permit, unless you are selling starts through a retail, is a incredibly low margin business. And quite frankly, for the majority of nursery permit holders, the revenue is not from the sale of an item from that facility, the genetics development within the facility. So the creation of value add, intellectual property, cannabis genetics, that's actually what occurs in most nursery facilities. The amount of actual commercial that sell clones to licensed cultivators is pretty low. And so the square footage on that, it doesn't really proportionally measure to a taxation rate based on square foot, because you can have rather large square footages that generate no immediate revenue.
We don't have a nursery in Siskiyou County, do we?
There is one contemplated in our development agreement, specifically, not to sell clones. It is specifically because only a nursery permit can do breeding programs. And if you want to create genetics to then utilize at a licensed cultivation site, you have to have that nursery permit to do the genetics development. So it's not a revenue stream per se in terms of like turnover of selling a product, you have to have that permit to be able to create genetics that are then accessible to a cultivation licensee. It's pretty annoying, but that's the way they did it.
So we exclude nursery, potentially we exclude
But
nursery.
if Elizabeth sells a plant, it's taxed because it's
Because then
something she
it's
sold.
and then it's a retail.
Yeah, it's retail.
exchange, right?
Everything out of her store is taxed at that 1%
Yeah.
when we get there.
She doesn't do non-cannabis in that side. She's now got that in her boutique. So everything on La Florista.
Sells in her cannabis store. I don't care how she
I-
arranges it,
let
that's
me
not
make
my.
this simpler.
Huh?
When I pay the California Department of Tax and Fee every month, that's on my gross, whether I'm selling shirts, glass, everything. You're already getting, well, if the cemetery, you're already getting 1.5 of that. This is a gross cannabis tax. My POS system actually allows me to divide my cannabis products that you're going to get taxed on and my non-cannabis products. You're still getting taxed on the non-cannabis products when I pay there, but what you're asking is 1% on my cannabis products. Yes, if I tell Shane or Raymond, I want 500 of your clones, he is going to charge me excise tax and tax to that local jurisdiction that I have to pay when I receive them. So, no.
Okay.
So when I sell it.
I'm just considering.
Right. So when I sell it, though, then that tax comes in and that's going to go back to you.
Right.
But by the way, my point was not about the inclusion of nursery in the gross receipts tax, because if you were to use that as a revenue stream, fine, I get it. But because we're envisioning a nursery that is mostly genetics development, to include the square footage tax on it seems counterproductive, because the square footage tax is about generation of a product out of a facility, whereas that's not really the business model for the nursery.
Can we make a different level? How about what if we had a different level of nursery? Your nursery license is genetic,
The state doesn't.
but the city, if you're producing
my
clones
opinion,
that
so I
you're
keep it
selling
simple.
out, that's taxable.
It still goes through the distributor, that's where you pay the tax.
Right.
So that's just an internal choice.
It's very
It is
complicated,
very
you
complicated.
guys.
They went with a decentralized model, very
What's our
specifically.
ordinance say? Am I off
Kind of
base
shot
there?
themselves in the foot in my book. Okay, thank you.
Bob's supposed to memorize
Bob's
that.
trying to memorize.
It's all in writing, it's all written down.
Make a motion.
She made a motion.
I did make a
And what was your motion?
Yeah.
Review it in July.
Yeah.
Okay.
1 and 1 or 1 and 2? What,
1 and 1 and review.
Sandy, what did I say?
January and review June of 2021 for a potential increase in July of 2021.
Yeah.
There it is.
Are the amendments of the motion being removed?
No, I would like to make an amendment to, can we, according to our ordinance, can we do 0 for nurseries? And 0 for distribution? And 0 for testing, because those have really nothing to do.
We don't have any testing.
Except keeping product.
Yeah.
That is not.
Yeah.
That is not
Somebody
retail delivery, just distribution as it's defined by cannabis control. Okay.
Okay.
Seconded?
Bob. All right, it's been moved and seconded to put, Sandy, you got it, 1 and 1, and what's out?
0 on nurseries, distribution, not retail delivery, and testing.
Okay.
Wait, can you retail delivery what?
0 on distribution, but not retail delivery. Yes. Excluding retail
Yeah, that's
delivery.
regular
Yes.
retail. Okay, there's been a motion. Has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, any opposed? Somebody needs to read the resolution? Kim? All right.
I was back on this ordinance thinking we needed a new ordinance, but I just saw that it was 18.
We adopt ordinance number 448-218 by title only.
Scrolling down, past all that stuff. It's 14-2020.
Pages here. Pass that button.
Reading in full of the body of the resolution number 14, 2020 be waived, said resolution being introduced and adopted by title only.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
I move adoption of Resolution 14-2020, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Weed adopting a gross receipts tax and a cultivation tax per square foot of canopy.
All in favor? Oh, second it. Okay. Now all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Did you two get it down there? Okay. All right. We're moving on to D. And D should be less than 30 seconds. We are not going to move our July meeting. Is that correct, Kim?
Correct.
Carnivale will not be in July?
Doesn't look like it. We're looking at the weekend that would have been the Siskiyou Golden Fair, which would be August 12th, I believe. 12th through the 15th?
Yeah, 12th through the 15th. So there's a possibility we could change August.
Yes.
But as of now.
And that's just because until we get direction from the governor that we can get temporary event licenses from ABC and the health department, it kind of defeats the purpose of having the event in the first place.
Okay. Moving on to finance, discussion only item. Council will consider possible sales tax measure for the November 2020 ballot.
Get started?
Bathroom.
I mean. You have music, man.
The band is, yeah, the band and the DJ are all set.
You taking selections? Little brown bird bluegrass music.
They had a disco ball in here last week, didn't they? Yep. I saw that. Yeah. They were line dancing.
Yeah, they had, I think there was a total of 31 kids in their class, and last that they told me they had 25 that were going to come. And they had, one of the parents made them, I think it was a Mexican food bar. And then they had this room and they were dancing and it was set up really, really pretty. And then they had the swimming pool and the rec room. And we are able to get on and watch the security cameras from our phones. This room doesn't have cameras in it, but they were having a blast. I was watching them in the swimming pool.
Full-blown graduation and then sober grab all night.
Years.
Yeah, but this was their sober grad night party.
Okay, we waited for you. Oh, sorry. That's all right. We were talking about the party. Yeah. Okay, he's back.
All right. The item on the agenda is simply for discussion only. There's no action to be taken on this particular. I mean, if we were going to do something, what was the deadline date in July that we would have 13th. To have? July 13th. So if the council decides to reconvene, they would have to reconvene before the next council meeting. Wait, is the next council meeting on the 13th? Yeah. So we'd have to have a special meeting prior to that in order to pass the resolution for this. And I have passed out some information to the council in regards to just some general data that you can find online about sales tax and elections in other cities, with what they have gone for And I've also given you kind of a spreadsheet that was provided to us by HDL showing what a quarter penny projections for 1920, which is approximately $260,000 is generated by 1/4 of a penny. Again, you got the data for the sales tax, and then I've also kind of given you a breakdown of the states, which you're probably very familiar with. When you add up all the states, the 3.6785 that goes for the general fund, and they just break it down, and it goes all the way up to 7.25, which we get 1% of, and then we have another 0.25 that was passed back in, I believe, 2015 to go for programs for the library, the senior center. I think there was some municipal services, public safety, and so forth. So that's what. It wasn't specifically earmarked, but it was to go for those purposes, which it does support those programs here in Weed. There was some discussion as to possibly generating another quarter penny sales tax for other services within the municipality, in particular like the cemetery, and then I think there was some other service involving parks.
For this extra sales tax?
Well, that's going to be up for discussion tonight.
You want to talk about?
Yeah, that's what we want to talk about tonight. So
I'm having one big issue, is that the recreation district is a district that consists of, I believe it starts at the Big Springs Road and it goes in somewhere around there.
No.
Where is the Weed Recreation District?
To Carrick, Hammonds.
Both of which out of the city limits.
South to Truck Village,
Yes.
north to Edgewood.
All which is out of the city limits, which concerns me is that are we a taxation unit for communities that are not in our purview? Weed Recreation District is a kind of a county city unit. I don't know if it would, for me, and I don't know if it's even doable, if it's appropriate for a city to collect a tax based upon a multi-district entity. I don't know that. That was my big question, I suppose, one of them. We also originally, about a year and a half ago, passed a omnibus bill with the state legislature, which was a fairly big deal, to have the recreation district go after a property tax, which is something that you can do. It is a multi-district type of situation. And so that, again, I like the idea of a sales tax. I think everybody does, because mostly for us, it's the traveler who pays the sales tax.
Little background as to how we got where we are tonight. I think
I understand that.
Yeah, I think you originally came up with the idea of every year when the cemetery would ask for TOT taxes, that, is that really what TOT taxes is for? And really, how do we get them their own dedicated funding source?
Yes, I agree.
So then, and at the time, I believe we started talking, $10 a parcel in a property tax. And then it was like, well, what property would we be including? And then would the recreation department be willing to take over the administration for that, and back and forth? So then we actually had to get permission, and that was the Omnibus Act from 2019. There's kind of conflicting information in here, because in one part it says that the cemetery is a local nonprofit, which they are, and I did not know that until we started doing this. But then it also says Weed's a small community where it can be difficult to find individuals who can serve on special districts. So special districts is what the rec department is. So then we started talking about the 1%, and the rec department board meeting discussed and said, yes, we would do the administration part for the cemetery only if this ballot measure passed. So we spoke to a consultant with our original idea of the $10 per parcel. I got a list of all the parcels that are within the Weed Rec District from the county. We have a lot of parcels in our district that are owned by the Forest Service, and so we're not going to get any money from them.
We don't get any from them now.
We don't get any now, so I don't think we're going to get any from them if this passes. So then, and then if you do a parcel tax, it has to pass by a 3/4 vote.
2/3 or 3/4?
I'm sorry, 2/3. 2/3. So the consultant leaned us more towards the $0.25% tax because, one, it only takes 50 plus one vote, and two, most of that money is coming from outside our city limits. So anything that anyone buys within the city, whether they're from Weed or they're from Timbuktu, that's where we're going to get the money from them.
You did that analysis
Yeah.
on the other one.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and so we all went, well, yeah, we could, because with the $10 one, we were only going to get like, it was like $26,000 a year, and that's not going to help us.
So I'd ask you, one of the proposals besides the $10 parcel fee was a percentage of the valuation of the property tax, which will generate you, I don't know if your consultant looked at that, but.
She did.
I mean, when you do that, then you bring into play Roseburg, which is in our district. You bring into the Weed Recreation District.
Mm-hmm.
You bring in Crystal Geyser. You bring in the college. You bring in anybody with an approved parcel, thereby making the commercial end of our city a little bit more out in forefront to help us pay for our expenses here.
But again, higher percentage of votes we have to get.
I don't know, because if we do a 1/4% sales tax and that, and maybe Tim can correct me if I am wrong, but on a 1/4% sales tax, you have to have 2/3 vote unless it is multi-pronged.
Right.
And it is.
Yeah, and there's a multi-prong in it.
So it's 50 plus one.
I understand that, but what is your multi-prong?
Rec district, cemetery, municipal services.
I just don't like putting more sales tax on. I think,
So right now in Siskiyou County, Wairika and Dunsmuir both have 7.75 is their sales tax rate. Weed and Mount Shasta are 7.5, and then everybody else is the state minimum of 7.25. So everybody that drives to Rayleigh's and Walmart or even has dinner in Dunsmuir, did you notice that you were paying another 0.5% in those two cities?
well, the fact, though, if you go to grocery outlet, you pay very little sales tax, and that's grocery items, and it's not taxable. But other than, I mean, I'm not going to debate the argument. I don't feel that the city should be a taxable entity for the rec district. I am having a hard time with that. That's
Well,
my
the
big
rec
take.
district can do it on our own but
Can't do that.
But the city also needs some of the
We
income.
can't do a sales tax. The rec
That's
department
right.
can't do a
It can
sales
only
tax.
be in the city.
And to me, what I don't like, even about our current 1/4% sales tax, every year we have to come around and we have to hash it out where we're going and where we're splitting the money. And then when we start looking at the rec district, that's going to create a whole other dividing, where for me, if it was a property tax, it's yours. It's yours to spend wherever you guys feel, if it's under your jurisdiction. Otherwise, I think maybe the city should be in charge of the rec district, but I don't think that's doable either because of the way we have it all structured.
So if the rec district and the cemetery went on their own and did a parcel tax, the amount we would get back would not change one thing in the day-to-day life of our organizations, because we would not get enough money.
What did they say the 1% sales tax, 1%
Or
2% parcel tax would get you? Did they look at a per $10 parcel, or did they look at a percentage and what would that generate?
We only did the $10 because I think we all felt, and you know this, we're all cheap in this town, that if we said 1% or 5% or 10%, it's not going to pass.
Well, I think what was successful when we even did the 1/4% sales tax was we did get the 51, of course, and we made it simple. But
which is
we
what
got the
her
groups
advice
out there. The city can't promote that, but the seniors did. The people that were impacted by that or potentially going to be impacted went out and fought for that tax.
Mm-hmm.
The seniors, the library.
I think they're the same people. They're going to fight for this one.
Might be.
I don't know. That's.
Well, I can tell you when.
All I know is there's a lot of people that complain about the taxation issue, but when I see them coming back from Medford loaded down in their car, they're not really concerned about the city of Wheat. But anyway,
Well, and I usually will say, oh, well, you did not help the state of California when you went there, but. So what's going to happen to the cemetery if we don't do this? I'm not sure. They'll be coming back every TOT wanting $15,000, and we're going to give them $4,000. And then rather than having a proper lawnmower, they're going to be out there with all their volunteers mowing by hand. I used the example earlier of it would be running a restaurant with a 2-slice toaster.
right.
The
But
rec
originally, when
department?
we were going to combine this, Kim, was that it didn't have to be a large amount of money, because when they come back, their total budget is only $25,000 or so. So what I'm feeling is that if the rec department wants money for the organization, I get it, everybody needs money, then the rec department should go after that money. I don't know if it's the city's position to go for it, but I mean, I'm one person here, so.
Yes.
I'd like to weigh in a little bit. I am, as far as the tax, the 1/4% sales tax, and by the way, Ms. Councilman Green, nice job with all the information there. Nice job. You rock. But myself, I think we're in a position where I think we should be the first one in the county to go to 8%. I think we need a 0.5% sales tax. I think we're in a situation in our community right now. For every dollar we pay for sales tax, we get $4. That's 75% of the sales tax comes from people moving through. We are in a situation, in a perfect situation. Mount Shasta doesn't have that. Dunsmere doesn't have that. That's what we have. That's our ace in the hole. For every dollar that we pay sales tax, we get $4. From other people, yeah. But you understand what I'm saying?
That was the stats he sent out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but actually, we had the number we worked with before is 85%. 74 is pretty low. But my point is that I really think that, the city, the position we're in right now, laying people out and furloughing and we're looking forward. I mean, anybody that says, oh, things are going to get good here in next quarter, You know what I'm going to say. Anyway, my point is, I really think we need to, if we're going to look at it, I say go for it. But we have to educate the public, because our situation is different. But we are in a bind. I mean, meeting our budget and keeping our services going is not going to be easy. And we're just starting. Until I'm sure we're just starting. And as each shoe falls, and there's going to be a bunch of shoes, that things are going to. I really think we need to look at. Going for the gusto. I really think that I think it's possible to educate our public. And like I say, we're in a unique situation here where for every dollar that we pay for tax, for sales tax, regarding this increase, we get $4. That's quite an investment. That's solid. I think we can do it. But I'm just throwing that out. I'm a little different than everybody else, but
I'm getting a frown back here. It's my frown's getting even worse.
That's okay.
But first of all, I don't think we tax ourselves out of this problem. I think the most immediate concern is how we keep our recreation district afloat, because I don't think we're talking about we have started this conversation with the cemetery, but we are more realistically talking about how we keep our rec district afloat. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The city afloat.
I think all three.
No, but here's the other deal, though. Say we take this to the voter, and it passes. When you ask for 0.75%, I do believe you'll get a different reaction to the vote. But say if we even are successful, before we see a dime of that money, it's going to be probably July of 2021. First of all, we have to pay at least $100,000 to the state of California to redo their taxation issues, because we did that with the 0.25% sales tax when we passed the initial one. So we're looking at July. So that impact is not going to have an immediate, even though we get it done, it's not going to have an impact regarding our city budgeting, at least until the next budget cycle.
I agree.
Okay, so
Because the last one that we did didn't even go into effect on March. It was voted on in November and it went into effect in March.
and before you collect, it's the next quarter or the second quarter after
right.
that. So, but then when you get your first quarter, you have to pay the $100,000 to the state. So again, now you're definitely looking into July. So
I'm not saying that we're going to, tax our way out of it, but I think that, and it's not going to happen immediately, but the liabilities that we're going to have, that's coming along by the time we get to 22, that's when everything's going to come to reality. I mean, we're juggling. You're juggling a budget right now. You're juggling money. It is what it is to make it through that. But sooner or later, if there's not reinforcement coming, the big bang is going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm not. Kim, what you're saying, your logic is right on. But I do think that we need to. I just think we need to understand that we're in something that is not going to go away in a year. In a year, we're not going to be all well, fine and dandy. We're going to be healing from being ripped apart. When the money stops coming in, it's going to stop coming in. Right now, the sales tax. When we started talking about sales tax, the whole state we're talking about a different amount of money, and we've. One thing we've done, and we've become dependent on sales tax. Our property tax isn't there. Our sales tax is what we're dependent on. So, but I do love a good debate.
Yeah,
I do.
I've already actually been discussing this, on just about a daily basis with people who come in here, and we have Paula here. She's a rec board member, but she's also being trained by osmosis to become a board member of the cemetery. So we ask a lot of questions. We've gone back and got some history. Probably her and I might be the only ones in this room, maybe Bob, that remember the old cemetery when it was dirt and rocks, and if you wanted your family's plot to look nice, you better be over there working it. I mean, I remember as a kid pouring concrete around and getting cinder block and pulling weeds. And if there is no additional income, my fear is that's what it's going to be again. Because yes, there are 3 guys that are working over there, and yes, they get paid a very minimal amount for the actual work that they do. And so I've talked to most of the people on the cemetery board, explained to them the difference of the parcel tax, the sales tax, how it's going to benefit the cemetery, how it's going to benefit the rec district. Right now, we're just like, the rec district right now is just like the city. Some of us are laid off, some of us are furloughed. We finally were at the point where we had members that were paying monthly dues, and then COVID hit, and they're not coming, and they're not paying, and we don't expect them to. So we would not have made payroll through the end of our fiscal year because of it. So any little bit that we get, whether it's in March of 2021 or July of 2021 or 2022, at least we can start planning. The doors to this place will still be open, and we may, if we don't pass something, and no matter what it is, we'll be one of the ones that doesn't have a swimming pool anymore. Our pool right now needs over $200 and some thousand worth of repairs, and we're band-aiding it year by year and hoping that the actual water in the pool holds the bubble in the fiberglass down and we don't have a sinkhole at some point. And we are looking at grants, and I've talked to McConnell, and we're getting money here and there, but I mean, it's a big job. And I don't know what would happen in our community if we did not have the center to do the senior services. You already heard about, the van. Yeah, they'd still get their money, but where are they going to work out of? We do all their administration. And from the people that I've talked to, and a lot of them were the seniors, they get it, and they so far have been very, very pro with us.
I'm a senior. I appreciate the fact that seniors are here when we can. Not now, but when it was there, definitely it's been a very good place for our seniors to have lunch and to have some activity. I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is that the city's position to become a taxation unit for the rec department. That is my biggest issue. I would also, not to be overly nosy, but I would like, in order for me to accept some of this, from my point of view, I'd want to see what the rec department's budget's looking like. No, I'm not disputing that, but I'm wondering.
In the last last week,
but here's the deal: is that we were a functioning rec district while we were on the other hill.
No, we weren't. We were
before the fire. Before the fire.
Before the fire.
But we were part of a group.
Oh.
We had one administration that ran 3 different rec departments, so that did.
And I'm going to let that go because I'm not going to comment on that. But I would say that we need to, what you have is expenses that far exceed your income.
Yes.
Where that needs to be corrected. I don't know if it's always just a taxation issue. that's, I am a business person, and it all can't be resolved certainly from a business angle, because this is not a business, okay? It provides a service. It's not designed to make more and more and more money. But I would like to know how we can generate more funds, either from the building or from what we do. And I know that's not an easy task, but I would like to see the budget and see where everything is. And I still would like to have the person who is doing your analysis of the property tax look at a percentage of valuation, not a parcel tax itself as a flat fee, because I think that will get you the money that would strictly be relegated to the rec district and the cemetery. I would just, that would be a good number to have.
We did talk to her about a percentage, and she still recommended the sales tax. And if we speak to her again, it's going to cost us $500.
I would tell you, if you give the, I'm going to just put this out there.
I think we could talk to Craig Kay about that.
0.5% sales tax, I know that we will find a way to spend it, because we always have a need to spend money. That's just a given with tax. But I'm just saying, the rec district is what needs the tax right now. I mean, the city, I believe, will grow past the coronavirus.
That's a question. City Manager, so what was the purpose of having it for discussion? Since we're going on and on with it, what did you want to accomplish by us discussing it? Throw out ideas, get some samples there?
Just get some input. It had been discussed over the past couple months, as the mayor and Councilmember Green had indicated, and trying to come up with some solutions and with the cemetery and the Parks District, and for the city's municipal services that we're providing as well. So the purpose of tonight was to have a discussion in regards to a possible, because we are under such a deadline, we have to have this done, to get it on the November ballot, we would have to have everything put in place before July 13th.
And our next meeting is the 9th. So.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, so we would have to have another special meeting in order to adopt a resolution to send it to the county. So that's kind of where we're at this point. So
Was it because of the upkeep of the cemeteries, Lincoln Heights and Winema? That's how the whole thing came up. And Ron Stock suggested that there was an initiative that came up. If we parked it with the rec board, it'd be more initiative to get some money through that avenue, and that's all it is. So, I mean, that's the origin. Some people are saying something else. It wasn't that. It was because of the upkeep, because Mr. Mazzei, Wes Dutt, I'm not sure the others, but they've come to us a couple times and said, we can't do this anymore. We can't do the upkeep. We're getting older. We're going to die out. We have no one to help us out. And that's where we're looking. That's what was initially brought up, to bring more funds to make it operable for both cemeteries. And that's where we are. Mm-hmm. And if it's, I know people don't want to be taxed, but if it's a smaller amount of tax that will go to an earmark for that, then that's what we have to have. I don't understand the difference.
I have talking to Ken, with Ken. Ken, you keep saying that you're against taxing for the rec department, and I have. My question is, I think I'm missing something. Is it only the rec department now has decided to pick up the cemetery? You were asked to pick up the cemetery. Okay, now this is new. Before, it was always by itself. When they come to ask us, at that time, they had nothing to do with the rec department.
Well, sort of. They have run their, they give the Parks and Rec money. The Parks and Rec secretary would write them checks. So there's a quarterly, they would give the Parks Weed Rec money. Weed Rec would write those guys paychecks. Huh?
Who would give Weed Rec?
The Cemetery Association.
Okay.
Association.
Right.
The rec department sends them an invoice that includes the cost for the workers' pay, their benefits, their workers' comp, all that, plus $25 every 3 months to write their checks.
Administration.
So if you looked at, this hurts us in some ways too. So if you looked at our employee records, it looks like those 3 guys are employees of the rec department because we do all their stuff for them. And we do it all under our tax ID, which that should not be, but that's how it is right now. Because there's 3 of them, we could not hire 3 more lifeguards because as soon as we hire 1 more person, our base minimum wage goes up. So if you have a company that has 25 or less employees, your base minimum wage is X. If you have 26 to 50 employees, your base is, it's 12 and then 13 and it goes up. So having them on our payroll actually affected whether we could hire some more kids this summer.
Or you got their money from TOT funds, right?
And the cemetery really does not have a funding source. It may look like there's a lot of room over there, and I don't know about the Lincoln Heights Cemetery, but just because there's not a grave there doesn't mean that the land is free. So, I own a plot over there. There aren't a lot of plots left to sell. And they're only $1,000.
People aren't buying them.
And people
on either cemetery.
In the last year, they sold 7.
Since June, we've had
9 since June.
I just processed 2 today for 1 family.
So that's how they make their money.
Do they have
That's okay.
perpetual care, or is it just one flat fee?
No.
For the parcel or for the plot, and then that's it? Because most cemeteries have a perpetual fee that you pay for maintenance.
The Juanita Cemetery is not in Dallas.
And we don't have a lot of our own equipment, so we have to rely on Mount Shasta to come up with their equipment to even.
Families pay for that, right?
Yeah.
Families pay for that.
But it would be nice if they paid us to do it.
Now we're buying it.
We don't have a backhoe.
They need it. Well, they come every year and they want to buy a tractor, and we don't ever give them enough money to buy a tractor.
And they have, again, it's become an issue. And I do applaud, the original conversation was to have the rec district take them over. Based upon our original analysis, a parcel fee was sufficient. But we're not just talking, and that's my point. We are not just talking about, and I want to make sure that is very clear, that we're not just talking about the cemetery, we're talking about the rec district being made whole here. I want the rec district to be whole. I think we should be offering all sorts of programs, but again, all of that stuff costs money. And
So the other analysis we did was based on the parcel tax that, of course, we're comparing again, Mount Shasta did. And what was theirs, $50 a parcel?
Theirs was $75 a parcel.
And that didn't pass.
But that's why the percent would work better. So Sue's house is worth, say, $300,000. Her 1% is one thing. Mine's worth $200,000. Mine's percentage is worth less. But if you go over to Roseburg Forest Products, they got $10 million worth of depreciated property over there. That's $10 million, 1% of $10 million. And if you go up to Crystal Geyser, that's why I'm saying the percentage works where, and maybe I'm wrong on this valuation, but the percentage works in a much better fashion than a per parcel thing. And yeah, you're right. You probably couldn't get $10 out of some folks. But there's some of us that are willing to pay. I'm fine with that.
That's a good point. So we have time. If it's due on, I'm so hearing myself. If it's due on the 13th, our next right? Monday, the 13th is when it would be due to the county. Our next meeting is July 9th. So if we choose, we can put it on the agenda.
Wait, there was,
Everything has to be together and in their hands.
On Monday, the 13th?
Yes.
Well, how fast do you type on Friday, the 10th?
We're closed on Fridays.
Oh. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
So
we'd have to have a.
Well, but
if
that's an
it's-
interesting,
unless
that,
it's gonna
what
go
Ken
parcel and
says
they
is
do
what
it.
we need to look that up, to find out what that number would be.
if it's a parcel situation and it's going directly to the Parks and Rec
The
District,
rec district can put it up.
then you're,
Right.
yeah,
We don't need the city
we
to
wouldn't
do
be
it.
involved.
You wouldn't get any money either. Exactly.
Right.
No, I understand that.
But we could,
We'll give you $1.
support,
Thanks.
everybody on this council can support stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
If it's a
And
city
that's
tax, we
something to
can't go out
research.
and promote.
Let's find out that next week.
Honey.
And I would love for you to look at the budget. We had everybody we could possibly find that was interested in looking at that budget in there last week. Because as the budget sits right now, that pool will not open next summer. We cannot afford it. That pool costs us about $10,000 to $12,000 a month for the 10 weeks it's open.
Just in the last 2 weeks?
We need to generate more money, especially if you come out of our area.
Right, but they're only like 9 years old. That's the problem, the people that are using it.
$30 to get in. No.
I know.
Just
Join, you can join for
So believe it or
$120.
not, in the summertime, the lifeguards every night will bring us the bag of money, and we're counting pennies to make deposits because they got to come up with 100 pennies to get into the pool that day.
And they'll find it too.
Ms.
They
Mayor,
will.
I was at a store the other day, and
Hang on, Bob.
I was waiting in line, and as I was behind somebody, and they bought some item that was $14.06 or something. Anyway, it was $1 something worth of change. She didn't want to touch the money. She said, "Give it to me." But here's a perfect opportunity for us to maybe go to some of the stores nowadays and say, can we do a roundup and that round up?
Yeah.
Because a
I
lot of
tried
people
that.
don't want to even,
I tried that last year.
it didn't work.
And some of the stores that I did talk to said they couldn't do it, but they did donate. And so last year, I did a little Just Keep Swimming campaign. You donated. And we brought in just a little under $3,000. And that paid to fix the pump that separated the sand so that we could open the baby pool. The heating bill up there?
We're not heating the baby pool this year.
No, we're not.
They could just be cold.
Ms. Mayor.
Bob,
Ms. Mayor, I'd like to address,
go ahead. Just start talking, Bob.
I'd like to address Tim and Sandy. What date is doable? If we were going to do this, how much time do you need?
That would also be for Bob as well, because he has to get.
Okay.
Yes.
For Bob also. To do this, what date do we have to have another special meeting?
Are you talking about for a sales tax or talking about for their the possible property
I'm
tax?
talking about the sales
If
tax.
we decide we need to vote for a sales tax.
If we, yeah. What would you say?
I would say at least a week before it's actually due to the county.
2 weeks?
Probably at least 1 week.
At least 1 week.
Bob needs to prepare things as well, so
Okay.
Yeah.
he needs time.
Bob, can we do it in a week before?
I can prepare things ahead of time and have them passed on Thursday the 9th.
Okay. Can we, so then if we have a meeting before, say on the 13th, so obviously we need 7 days, by the 6th, we'd need to have a meeting by the 6th of July.
Question that we have not asked, okay? I've been up here blabbering, but what is staff thinking about the 1/4% sales tax?
Depending on, I mean, what it's going to be dedicated for. I mean,
Do you feel having the 1/4% sales tax could benefit us enough to make it worthwhile?
I think it would definitely help. The $260,000 would be helpful. Point of sales that we collect here in weed is about $1 million, and then we get the use tax and then the county pool and that formula as well. That gets us up a few more $100,000. So, yeah, I think definitely the quarter penny would help offset some of our costs for public safety, for fire, police, some of the things that we're trying to accomplish here. Absolutely. And, and I've kind of talked to you as a group too, talking about the competition as far as getting, I know that's been mentioned about, going up to a half penny would put us at 8, and that'd be, the highest in the county. Like I said, there's a couple others at 7.75, and I understand that too. But at this point, I would, if this were going to go to a vote, I would also recommend that the language state that a portion of this, I know we can't earmark it, but a portion of this would go into a reserve fund as well. A percentage of it would go. We can do that by policy, by resolution with this council to say, of this sales tax, this percent will go into a reserve fund, because I think that's where the difficulties lie within us. And we had talked about it earlier today. Had we not implemented the layoffs and the furloughs like we did a couple months ago, we wouldn't have made payroll today. I mean, that's how tight our budget is right now. So,
all staff, I have to say that that's a lot to give up to. But.
Yeah, I mean, we as the new city manager walking in the door and said, "Guess what? We're going to cut your pay by 10%." And
Until after you sign.
Until after I got here. Thank you. So, but
you did not show up.
All of us did that too. I want you guys to know that with the city took the percentage, we took the percentage.
Correct. And that's, like I said, that's kind of, but yes, I mean, $260,000, injected back into the general fund would be very helpful.
Not going back to, all of that's not going back because we're on a split basis, right? This is.
No, it wouldn't be split. I can, and I've said this before, I can't see that the rec department would need $150,000 every single solitary year. But things like help with getting the pool fixed. We can sustain this building, but we can't open the pool. So we got to make a choice. We could shut down this whole building and open the pool.
For 45 days.
Right, for 10 weeks. There'd have to be some give and take on some of the, actually it wouldn't equal out because this building doesn't cost us that much money. I mean, so it wouldn't be, of the 260, we need $200,000 every single solitary year. The budget's not that bad. What it's affecting is we don't want to end up like Wairika is. If we can't get the pool fixed and it gets a hole in it, we can't afford to. Yeah, we can't afford to fix it.
Ms. Mayor, I'd like to go back to a date that we would need to do this by.
We would need to have everything in. No later than the 6th. I think that's what we kind of, I mean, everything would have to be.
So what date would that be for the Thursday before, if we did a Thursday or?
Well, the Thursday before the 9th is the 2nd of July. And then the week before that is July 25th, which I can't do that, but let's have Kim.
By the end of the June.
Yeah.
I think if we got it by the end of June.
Let's research what Ken was talking about. I think we just need to call Craig and see, Craig K, not you, up at the,
Yeah, Craig, could you get that for us? And have it in
up at the county and see what that number could be.
Make a slant fire.
It all done by the 25th of June?
Hopefully.
Schedule a special meeting by then, or what do you think?
No, let's research that other thing next week.
Yeah, but let's set the date so we don't put it off.
And then cancel it if we don't have to have it.
Right.
Sandy, what would you like? The 25th or July 2nd?
Not July 2nd.
Okay. And the 25th is out for me.
I can't do the 25th. Are we restricted to just Thursdays? Stacy, you're available?
I just picked that. Just don't do Mondays.
Okay.
Yeah. My son called it something the other day. Crap.
The 23rd would be.
The 23rd? Can we put down the 23rd at 5:30?
Sure. For a special meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, what did you just decide?
23rd
Okay.
of July.
June.
June 23rd at 5:30.
Okay, at the city or here?
TBA.
I just don't want Jeremy to have to do all that work just for.
We can sell a half %.
Well, okay, then I say that between now and the 25th, start talking to your neighbors.
23rd.
See, get some feedback.
But if they would want a sales tax.
If, mention it all. Sales tax to 775, sales tax to 8, or percentage of parcel.
We're currently 750 now, right?
Seven.
Yeah, 7.5.
Yeah.
7.5.
Is there anybody from the newspaper here?
Yeah.
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 Good. I would like to make, as this discussion, I would really like to make, hopefully we make the point that our situation in Weed is quite different in that for every dollar of sales, regarding the increase, every dollar that we are taxed, we get $4 for, because of the amount of people that are moving through our community.
So for every $5 that we collect in taxes, 4 of it comes from people out of town. 4 of those $5 come from people traveling through, right?
It's not.
No, for every $4.
$4. We collect in sales tax.
3.
3 is generated from
People on the outside.
people coming in off the interstate, approximately. I mean, we don't have it.
Down to the penny. Did that make sense? Yeah, I look forward to Oh. Okay.
I'll give them my cell number.
Okay.
And I will try to talk to, I've already mentioned this to some of the people on the Wainema board about having a sit down with them and explaining to them what we're all trying to do to make, I mean, I've talked to a lot of them individually, but not as a group. And so maybe I'll try to at least maybe, that would be a nightmare Zoom meeting, wouldn't it?
We need to make sure we talk to the seniors that are closer to the issue.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
That is actually one of my points that I made, and the fact that they're all on the cemetery board.
It's okay.
Yes.
I can pass.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody need to remove anything? Perfect.
Consent agenda as written.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Staff reports. Craig.
You start down here.
Because I like you.
I'm glad to report that Monday, we're going to be starting our walkthrough on the sewer project. So that means we are real close to being finished up. So we'll end up not having so much construction around town.
Just in time for Caltrans to start.
Yeah. And Tuesday, we start Vista Drive?
No.
Oh. Okay.
June 25th, we go to the CTC, and that will
Oh, and ask for more money.
Then we can go out to bid. So we'll get another project this summer, whether it
Okay.
be water or Vista, something.
Did we get the bids out on North Davis? You said-
No. Fred's working on that this week, and the expenditure date on that is the end of August, so we have to get it done before the end of August.
Okay, thanks.
Going to repave the boulevard?
For our sake, I want to hope no.
Okay.
Because our water project, I'm hoping to get started this year, doesn't look like it's going to make it.
Okay.
So I would like to get our water project done first and then repave everything. Because if they repave now, I'll have to repave it again if our water project goes.
Gotcha.
Do they understand that?
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
They made us repave that center lane, though.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Chief Mayberry.
A couple things. County stakeholders meeting yesterday, as Public Health advised that they are meeting their requirements per the letter of attestation. The 60 tests per day, they're currently doing 90. They attributed the uptick in recent cases to the increase in testing. So they're basically saying there's more cases because more people are being tested. Some of those people are, I wouldn't say asymptomatic, but they wouldn't necessarily be seeking tests in the early 2 months ago. They also indicated that they are all for opening into phase 3 as soon as the state will allow, and they are just following those guidelines as they come out. I'd also, we received a letter of thank you and commendation, I guess, kind of an attaboy for Corporal Green. I think he left, but he assisted Sheriff's Department on May 22nd, traffic stop out by Louis Road. 3 people in the car. The officer that made the stop took one of them into custody due to some evasive behavior inside the vehicle. Also saw what he appeared to be a handgun in the vehicle. The driver then, as he was placing that passenger in the car, the driver exited the vehicle and would not follow his directions to stay in the vehicle or stay away, and approached him. He'd already requested backup. Corporal Green responded, and we received a thank you and a letter of commendation from Sheriff Lope for his actions, for responding out there and assisting.
Thank you. Chief Duncan.
I'd just like to say we participated in a bunch of parades for graduation. The police department did too.
Thank you.
From charter schools all the way up to the high school a couple times. 2
Our
parades.
dogs loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
Do your dogs howl when our dog used to howl when the sirens went?
Also, like I said, the academy, their last day was today. So I believe all of them graduated.
How many?
Well, I don't know how many are in it exactly, but we had 7 at the 7 sleepers. So
I think there's 28.
I think there's usually 23, 28, yeah. So they're done. Actually, most of them got hired, like I said, from CAL FIRE. They start on the 22nd. So.
Okay.
And we are negotiating the contract with the college. It's up on June 30th. So I have a meeting next week. They pay us every semester for the tower. So they want to, it ends on the 30th, so we have to renegotiate that contract.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Thank you.
Anything on the ambulance stuff? What happened when it went to?
It's, the ambulance is, it was put off until December because of the COVID stuff by the county. So.
John, I'm sorry. He liked to be in the flavor of the month, though. He remembered.
I didn't even remember that.
So hopefully they come in to give you a report every week, so you have something to tell me. Because I can't see it with my own eyes. Bob. Sandy. I know you got all excited there for a second.
He leaned in, yeah.
I know.
I was, if you could turn the heat up in here.
I know.
It's freezing.
It's 67 degrees.
That would save some money.
Yeah, it would. Is that all, Sandy? That's all you
That's
had?
all I have.
Oh, okay. Now it's your turn.
One bit of good news that we received last week was the Rural 20A agreement that we had with the county last year. We purchased the credits for the underground utilities. The original contract stated that we were going to pay $60,000 in May, and then another $60,000, I believe, at the end of the year. Or
It was May and May.
Or May of next year. We went back because of all the budget constraints that we had and talked to Michael Kopsef and visited with him about possibly deferring. And then he said, what if I can get it to you for nothing? And I said, I like nothing, a lot better than deferring the payment. So the Board of Supervisors last week passed the amended agreement with us. And so we have now got those $1.2 million in credits for underground utility relocation for nothing. So thank you to the county.
Good.
So.
Letter, or should we just not publicize it very much?
Yeah, they may have a bunch.
Honestly, tell you.
So anyway, and I would just like to also say, a big thanks to, I got a great staff here. Over the last 3 months, I've gotten to know them more and more each day that we work together. And I really, really appreciate it. And it has been a little bit of a struggle walking in the door and laying people off and furloughing and the whole thing. And it's been tough. But we've talked about it, the fruits of the unfortunate furloughs are starting to pay off. And, and just let everybody know also, it's not just furloughs and layoffs. We've also frozen any sort of step increases, any sort of COLAs that both labor units, we've had to inform them that there would not be any COLAs starting July 1 as well. So it's not been a good, fun start for me, but it's been something that I've been really, really pleased with the staff and the resiliency and their staying positive through all this as well.
We told you that part when we hired you.
Oh, I know.
We just didn't tell you everything.
You didn't tell me
we
everything.
said the people are really nice.
There we go. And they are. And they're
Right.
great.
See, we didn't lie about that. The rest of the bad stuff, we just didn't tell you.
Yeah, I know. I found out the first day.
Right. We just didn't tell you. Who adjourns? You?
Ms. Mayor, I make a motion that we adjourn the closed session.
Before we do, I want to thank Jeremy.
yeah.
Because this is like way above and beyond what I thought you were going to do with our room, and it is awesome. So thank you.
Thank you to the bandstand down there.
When I walked in the door, I said, it was like world's largest podcast, the world's largest and safest podcast. So
We'd all have our microphones right here.
Make sure we thank the rec department, even though I've been a little critical
No.
today, okay? So
Yes, we donated the space.
Right. Now
You
we're going to
should
have
have
to
sent us
charge
a
you
hell of a bill.
$400.
Yeah. I'm going to send you a bill. After this passes, I'm going to send you a bill.
Okay, it was moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session. Thank you, everybody, for coming. All in favor? Aye.